Don't move. The words didn't come from the sensei. They came from the smallest voice on the mat, a girl who barely looked tall enough to reach the water fountain. Her sleeves rolled twice because her uniform hung on her like borrowed curtains. For a half second, the entire dojo froze the way a movie freezes right before the truth hits. No music, no chatter, just the soft buzz of fluorescent lights and the faint, clean sting of lemon disinfectant rising off the freshly mopped floor. Tyler Briggs, 17, confident, loud, a black belt with a social media highlight reel and a grin that never asked permission, had been showing off again, the kind of showy spin that made the other teens clap like they were courtside at a game. His feet slapped against the mat, quick and sharp, and then a slip. Not dramatic, not heroic, just one wrong angle and a sudden, ugly sound from his knee that made even the toughest kids stop smiling. Tyler's face went pale in a way that didn't match his swagger. He tried to laugh it off, tried to stand on pride alone, but his leg didn't cooperate. That was when Mia Carter stepped forward. Mia, 10 years old, maybe 4 feet tall, maybe 60 pounds soaking wet, with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail that kept coming loose at the edges. She moved like she'd been trying to stay invisible her whole life, but now she wasn't invisible at all. She crouched a few feet away, close enough to help, far enough to respect, and held her hands open, palms down, calm as a nurse in an ER. Don't move, she repeated, softer this time, like she was talking to the knee itself. If you stand up right now, you could make it worse. The room blinked at her. Brienne Nicole, the unofficial queen of the advanced class, let out a tiny laugh that had no humor in it. Logan Price smirked like he'd just been handed a new joke. And somewhere near the back, a mop bucket wool squeaked. Rachel Carter, Mia's mom, pausing mid-clean as if her heart had grabbed the handle and pulled hard. Rachel wore plain sneakers and a work shirt with her name stitched in blue, the kind of uniform people look through instead of at. She had been polishing this dojo after hours for months, making the trophies shine, keeping the mirrors streak-free, never asking for attention. Mia usually stayed near her, quiet, studying the room in reflections, tatami mats, framed certificates, gold letters that spelled out honor like it was a brand. Tonight was supposed to be simple. Mia's first class here. A fresh start. But the second Tyler went down, the air changed. The kids with black belts, kids who had mastered how to bow, but not how to humble themselves, looked at Mia like she'd crossed a line just by speaking. She's a white belt, someone whispered, loud enough to land. Why is she acting like a medic? Another laugh. Another smirk. The sensei, Kenji Nakamura, stepped closer, his expression unreadable, eyes sharp as if he was measuring more than an injury. Mia didn't look at the crowd. She looked at Tyler's foot, the angle of his knee, the tension in his shoulders. Breathe, she said, steady. Slow. Tyler's jaw clenched. He hated needing anyone, especially a kid who looked like she should be in a coloring book aisle, not on a mat with champions. I'm fine, he tried, but his voice cracked around the lie. Mia's gaze flicked, just once, to the trophy case by the wall, rows of gleaming cups, a faded team photo tucked behind glass, and one corner where the paper was wrinkled, like someone had touched it too many times. Then she looked back at Tyler and spoke with a quiet certainty that didn't match her size at all. You're not fine. And I can prove it. The moment Mia said she could prove it, the laughter in the room did not disappear, but it changed shape, like smoke pulled into a narrow glass. Brianna's grin tightened. Logan's eyes darted to Sensei Nakamura, searching for permission to turn the girl into the next joke. Tyler tried to lift his chin like a king on a shaky throne, but his breathing told the truth before his pride could edit it. Sensei Nakamura raised one hand, palm out, and the room obeyed him the way the ocean obeys the moon. No one touches him, he said, calm and clipped, as if calm was a rule here. Then his gaze dropped to Mia, not unkind, not impressed, just measuring. Why are you speaking as if you have seen this before? Mia did not flinch. Her eyes stayed on Tyler's foot, the angle, the tension, the way his weight wanted to. Cheat to the side. Because I have, she answered, and there was no drama in it, only certainty. In the back, Rachel Carter set her mop down so gently it barely made a sound, but her face was loud with worry. Rachel had spent the last year inside this building after everyone left, when the trophies stopped sparkling for show and started gathering real dust. She wiped fingerprints off glass with lemon polish until her hands smelled clean, even when her life did not. Mia came with her because babysitters cost money and because Mia did not complain. She sat on the bench with a paperback and a granola bar, listening to the hum of lights and the soft slap of mats settling, watching her mother make a rich place look richer without anyone ever saying thank you. The dojo had rules on the wall in neat black lettering: respect, discipline, humility. Mia learned early that words on a wall do not always match the voices in a room. Some nights, when the building was empty, Mia would stand in front of the mirror and practice the basics she had watched through the crack of a door during classes. She would copy the straight spine, the relaxed shoulders, the way a real punch was not anger but alignment. She counted slowly, 1 through 10, because she liked how numbers did not judge. When she made a mistake, the mirror did not laugh. It only showed her what was true. That was how Mia trained. In silence, with the smell of disinfectant and the whisper of her mother's mop as the only applause. And in that silence, Mia noticed things other kids missed. Like the framed photo in the trophy case that looked ordinary unless you stared long enough. A youth tournament team lined up in white uniforms, medals around their necks, smiles too big for their faces. The paper was wrinkled near the bottom corner, touched again and again, like someone had tried to smooth it out, but kept coming back to the same spot. Mia had seen Rachel pause there before, eyes soft, breath held, as if the glass contained a memory she could not afford to look at too long. Now, in the bright noise of the present, Mia's attention returned to Tyler. Sensei Nakamura motioned to an older student to bring a cold pack from the office. And the student moved fast, suddenly serious. Tyler swallowed. "I told you I am fine," he muttered. But it sounded smaller now, less like a command and more like a plea. Mia lifted her gaze to meet his for the first time. Her eyes were steady, dark, and oddly gentle. "If you stand to prove you are tough," she said, "you will only prove you are stubborn." The room went quiet again, because there was something about the way she said it that did not feel like a child repeating a lesson. It felt like someone who had paid for the lesson herself. Sensei Nakamura stepped closer, his shadow crossing the mat like a line being drawn. "Mia Carter," he said, reading her name from the registration form he held at his side. "You are new here." He paused, then asked the question that made Rachel's fingers curl around the mop handle. "So tell me, truthfully, where did you learn to speak like that?" Sensei Nakamura's question hung in the air like a bell that had been struck but not yet stopped ringing. And for the first time since Mia walked onto the mat, she felt every eye land on her at once. Not the warm kind of attention children chase on birthdays, but the sharp kind that measures and labels and decides. The dojo itself seemed to lean in, polished and bright, all clean lines and strict symmetry, like a place built to make people stand straighter than they thought they could. The trophies behind glass glinted under white lights. The mirrors along the wall reflected the whole room twice, so even if you tried to disappear, you still had to watch yourself exist. Somewhere near the front desk, a small fan clicked as it turned, and the scent of lemon cleaner mixed with the faint rubbery warmth of the mats, the smell of effort without applause. Tyler stayed seated, jaw tight, pretending he was choosing to rest instead of needing to. Brianna's arms folded across her chest, her black belt not perfectly centered, her expression saying that rules mattered until they threatened her pride. Logan rocked back on his heels, eager for a story that ended with someone else feeling small. Mia looked down at her own belt, the plain white cotton that Rachel had bought secondhand because it was what they could afford, and she swallowed, because the truth was complicated and the room did not feel patient. Rachel took one step forward from the back, then stopped. Her hands were still damp from cleaning. Her fingers curled as if she could wipe away what was coming, but she could not. Sensei Nakamura waited without rushing, his calm not gentle and not cruel, simply practiced. Mia lifted her chin, and when she spoke, her voice stayed quiet, but it did not shake. "I learned by watching," she said. A few kids snickered, the kind of laugh that says watching is not the same as earning, but Mia did not flinch. "My mother works here at night," she continued, eyes flicking once toward Rachel, who looked like she was holding her breath on purpose. "When the classes end, the lights stay on. The mirrors stay up. The mats stay here. So I watch what people did when they thought nobody important was looking." That landed differently, because it was too honest to be cute. Sensei Nakamura's gaze narrowed, not in anger, but in focus, as if he had just been handed a clue. Watching is one thing, he said. Knowing is another. Mia nodded, like she agreed with him, like she had agreed with him long before he said it. I practiced after, she replied. Just the basics. Stances, breathing, alignment. I counted. I corrected myself in the mirror. Brianna tilted her head. In your living room? She asked, sweet and sharp. Mia did not look at her. In this room, Mia answered, and the words made Rachel's shoulders tense, because it was true. Some nights Mia had stepped onto these very mats in socks, careful not to leave marks, repeating what she had seen, not for attention, but because it made her feel steady in a life that was not. Sensei Nakamura glanced past Mia toward the trophy case, toward the wrinkled photo tucked behind the glass, and for a moment his face changed, just slightly, as if he recognized the shape of something he had forgotten. Then he looked back at Mia and asked, softer now, if you have been training in silence, why are you here tonight, in front of everyone? Mia's eyes moved to Tyler, then to the line of black belts, then to the mirrors that held every expression like a verdict. She took a small breath, and when she spoke, it sounded like a promise she had made to herself. Because I cannot stay invisible forever, she said, and the room went so still that even the fan seemed to hesitate. Sensei Nakamura held the silence for another breath, then lowered his hand, as if placing the whole room back on its tracks. All right, he said, voice even. Tyler will sit and ice his knee. The rest of you will continue class. The older student returned with a cold pack, and Tyler took it with a forced smile, his pride doing most of the gripping. He glanced at Mia like she had stolen something from him, not because she had touched him, but because she had spoken with authority he did not expect from someone who looked like she should still be learning how to tie her shoes. The class formed lines again, black belts in front, colored belts behind, white belts near the back like a quiet footnote. Mia moved toward the end without being told, instinctively choosing the smallest space, the safest shadow. Her white belt sat plain against her uniform, the knots slightly uneven, the ends not matching length, a tiny detail that invited judgment in a room that worshipped symmetry. Brianna noticed immediately. She always noticed anything that could be turned into a lesson for someone else. Cute, she murmured to Logan, loud enough for nearby students to hear. She cannot even tie it right. Logan's laugh was quick and careless, like the snap of a belt through air. A couple of kids smiled because smiling was easier than defending a stranger. Mia kept her eyes forward, shoulders relaxed, breathing steady the way she had practiced when the dojo was empty and the only witness was her own reflection. Sensei Nakamura began warm-ups, counting slow, making everyone move together like one machine. Down, up, down, up. Sneakers squeaked. Uniforms rustled. The mats gave that soft, dense sound under palms, like packed sand. Mia followed perfectly, not fast, not showy, just correct, and that should have been invisible, except correctness has a way of irritating people who rely on noise. Between counts, Tyler whispered something to Brianna. Brianna's eyes flicked to Mia's belt again, then to Rachel in the back, where Rachel stood frozen beside the mop bucket, pretending to check supplies while her gaze kept returning to her daughter like a silent prayer. When warm-ups ended, Sensei Nakamura called for basic stances. The room spread out, each student an island in a grid, facing the mirror wall. Mia took a spot near the corner, close to the air vent that hummed softly, a place that smelled faintly of clean metal and lemon polish. Sensei's voice traveled across the room, correcting hips, shoulders, feet. Balance is respect, he said. Control is discipline. Mia adjusted her stance by an inch without being told. Her knee aligned, her heel anchored, her spine lengthened, as if a string pulled her from the crown of her head. In the mirror, her face looked calm, but her eyes were wide with focus, the kind of focus that comes from practicing when nobody claps. That was when Brianna stepped sideways, too close, invading Mia's square on purpose. New rule, Brianna said, smile bright and mean. If you are going to talk like you know better, you should prove you belong. Logan leaned in, hands on his hips, enjoying the audience he was gathering. Tyler sat with the cold pack pressed to his knee, watching like a judge from the sidelines. Mia did not move, but the air around her tightened. Sensei Nakamura was across the room correcting another student, his back turned for the moment. Brianna's fingers pinched the end of Mia's white belt and tugged it just enough to loosen the knot. Oops, Brianna whispered. Maybe your mom can fix it after she finishes cleaning. A few students snorted. Rachel's breath caught so sharply that even she heard it. Mia reached for the belt, then stopped herself, because she understood something important. If she rushed, she would look flustered, and flustered was exactly what they wanted. She lifted her eyes to the mirror and met her own reflection first, grounding herself in what was true. Then she looked at Brianna, steady and quiet, and said, "Do not confuse a belt with a person." Brianna blinked, surprised that Mia had words for that. Logan scoffed. Tyler's smile faded. And somewhere behind the glass of the trophy case, that wrinkled old photo seemed to glow a little brighter, as if it recognized her. For one heartbeat, Brianna looked like someone had been handed a truth she could not bend, and that was exactly why she hated Mia in that instant. She recovered fast, rolling her eyes with practiced ease, turning the moment into theater. "Listen to her," she said, loud enough for the whole line to hear. "She talks like she is the sensei." Logan let out a laugh that bounced off the mirrors, and a couple of students joined in, not because it was funny, but because belonging is a powerful drug in a room full of belts. Mia kept her hands at her sides, shoulders relaxed, stance still clean. She did not shrink, but she did not swell either. She stood like a person who had learned that dignity is not something you win, it is something you refuse to surrender. Sensei Nakamura's voice cut through the noise like a straight line. "What is happening here?" He had turned back toward them, eyes scanning the group, landing on Brianna's posture, on Logan's grin, on Mia's loosened knot. Brianna's smile softened into innocence so quickly it could have fooled anyone who did not know how cruelty hides behind politeness. "Nothing, Sensei," she said. "We were just helping the new girl. Her belt was tied wrong." Mia did not look at Brianna. She looked at Sensei Nakamura and spoke plainly. "Someone pulled it loose," she said. The words were simple, but they landed heavy. The room shifted. A few students glanced down at their own knots like they suddenly remembered what respect was supposed to mean. Tyler's eyes narrowed from the sideline, cold pack still pressed to his knee, his pride now alert and angry in a quieter way. Sensei Nakamura walked closer and stopped in front of Mia, close enough that she could smell the faint cedar on his uniform, the clean, steady scent of someone who practiced discipline the way others practiced performance. He studied her belt, then her face. "Retie it," he said. Mia nodded and knelt, fingers moving calmly, making the knot even, centered, firm. When she stood again, Sensei Nakamura turned to the class. "A belt is not a weapon," he said. "It is a reminder. If you use it to shame someone, you dishonor what it represents." His gaze held on Brianna one beat longer than everyone else's, and Brianna's cheeks flushed with something that was not embarrassment, but frustration at being seen. Then Sensei Nakamura walked to the front and clapped once, sharp. "Line up," he ordered. The class obeyed, feet sliding into place on the mats, uniforms whispering. He reached behind the front desk and pulled out a clipboard, then a stack of sign-up sheets. The paper made a dry sound, ordinary and quiet, but the effect on the room was immediate. 3 weeks from today, he announced, this dojo will send a team to the Tri-County Youth Invitational. It will be a 2-day tournament, about 180 miles away. Only a few students will represent us. A ripple moved through the black belts. Excitement dressed up as certainty. Tyler sat up straighter, as if the announcement had healed his pride faster than ice. Brianna's eyes brightened, already imagining photos, medals, praise. Sensei Nakamura continued. Tryouts will be next Saturday. Discipline, control, form, and character will matter more than ego. If you cannot show respect in practice, you will not wear this dojo's name in public. He taped the sign-up sheet to the wall near the trophy case, right beneath the wrinkled team photo. Students began drifting toward it as if pulled by gravity, pins appearing, names written with flourish. Mia watched from her spot, silent. Rachel, still near the back with the mop bucket, took a step forward, panic flickering across her face like a warning light. Her eyes begged Mia to stay small, to stay safe, to stay invisible. But Mia's feet moved anyway, slow and steady, carrying her across the mat. She reached for the pen, and as she lifted her arm, her sleeve slid back just enough to reveal a small, faded patch stitched inside the cuff, frayed at the edges, the kind of patch you only get from an official tournament. Rachel's breath caught again, sharper this time. Brianna saw it. Her smile thinned into something sharp. Tyler saw Brianna's reaction and followed her gaze, his expression changing from annoyance to curiosity. Mia signed her name anyway, Mia Carter. Then she capped the pen, turned slightly, and found Tyler's eyes on her like a question he did not want to ask out loud. And in the bright reflection of the trophy case, it looked like the past was about to step out of the glass. The pen ink on the sign-up sheet looked harmless, just a name on paper. But the moment Mia stepped back, the air around her felt sharper, like someone had turned the room a few degrees colder. Brianna moved in first, not rushing, not loud, just close enough to make it clear that Mia was not allowed to stand comfortably. Tryouts are for serious students, she said, her voice sweet in the way sour candy pretends to be sugar. People who actually earned their place here. Logan drifted behind her like backup, grinning as if the whole moment was entertainment. Tyler stayed near the sideline, watching, his expression unreadable now, like he had realized there was something about this little girl that did not fit the story he wanted to tell. Mia kept her hands at her sides and her shoulders relaxed, but her eyes did not drop. She looked at the clipboard, at her own name, and then she looked back at Brianna with a calm that made Brianna's confidence wobble for a second. I am serious, Mia said. That is why I signed. Brianna's gaze flicked to Rachel in the back, to the mop bucket, to the work shirt, to the wet hands that smelled like lemon polish and effort. Brianna's smile widened. Do you know what a tournament weekend costs? She asked, loud enough that a few students turned their heads. Gas for almost 200 miles, hotel, food, registration fees. It is not exactly a field trip. She leaned in, lowering her voice just enough to feel private while still being cruel. Maybe you should let your mother focus on what she is good at, cleaning up after everyone else. Rachel's face tightened, but she did not move. She had learned that stepping into other people's cruelty often makes it worse, and she had spent too many nights swallowing words to keep a paycheck. Mia's jaw tensed for a heartbeat, then softened. My mother is good at many things, she said evenly, and I do not need your permission to try. Logan let out a short laugh. She does not need permission, he repeated, mocking her calm. Did you hear that? Brianna tilted her head as if she was studying Mia like a problem. Then explain the patch, she said suddenly, eyes sharp as a needle. Mia blinked once. She had forgotten, for a moment, that her sleeve had betrayed her. Brianna took a half-step closer, pointing with two fingers like she was presenting evidence. That tournament patch. Where did a white belt get that? A few students leaned in, curiosity waking up like a light. Tyler's gaze narrowed, and he leaned forward as if his body wanted answers more than his pride wanted distance. Rachel took one involuntary step, then stopped again, her hands hovering helplessly at her sides. Mia did not look at her mother. She did not give the room the satisfaction of seeing them share fear. She simply drew a slow breath and said, It is mine. Brianna's eyebrows lifted. Sure, she said, stretching the word. And those trophies are mine too. Laughter bubbled around them, not loud, but enough to sting. The kind of laughter that says, we have already decided who you are? That was when Sensei Nakamura's voice cut in from behind them, calm but unmistakably firm. Enough, he said. The circle broke instantly, students stepping back into their own spaces the way children move away from a line they know they should not cross. Sensei Nakamura looked at Brianna, then Logan, then Tyler, and finally at Mia. This dojo does not question a student's character in whispers, he said. If there is a concern, it is brought to me. If there is an accusation, it is made with courage and responsibility. Brianna's cheeks flushed, but her eyes stayed defiant. We just do not want someone pretending, she said. Sensei Nakamura turned his gaze to Mia again, steady and thoughtful. Are you pretending? He asked. Mia held his eyes. No, she answered. The word was small, but it sounded like steel wrapped in kindness. Sensei Nakamura nodded once, as if he had heard what he needed to hear for now. Then you will be at tryouts, he said, loud enough for everyone to understand. Next Saturday, 9 in the morning. Wear your uniform. Bring your focus. And Mia, he added, pausing just long enough to make the room listen harder. Do not let anyone decide what you are before you have a chance to show it. Tyler's jaw tightened. Brianna's smile did not return, and Mia, standing under the bright lights and the watching trophies, felt something shift inside her, because the next 7 days it suddenly looked like a hallway leading straight toward a door she had been afraid to open. That night, when the dojo lights finally clicked off and the glass trophies stopped pretending they were stars, Mia and Rachel walked out into the parking lot under a pale street lamp that made everything look a little lonelier than it was. Rachel carried the mop bucket to the trunk like it weighed more than water, like it carried every unspoken fear she had been swallowing since Mia signed her name. Mia sat in the passenger seat of their old sedan, knees tucked close, watching her mother's reflection in the side mirror as Rachel slid behind the wheel and started the engine. The heater coughed warm air that smelled faintly of winter coats and lemon polish. Rachel did not scold Mia. She did not praise her either. She simply drove, hands tied at 10 and 2, eyes fixed on the road, as if looking away for even a second might let the world fall apart. There is a certain kind of silence that only happens when two people love each other and are both terrified. Maybe you have known it. The kind where you can hear your own heartbeat louder than the radio. The kind where you want to say, "I am proud of you," but you are afraid pride will invite punishment. The kind where you want to say, "Do not do this," but you cannot bear to clip your child's wings. When they reached their apartment, Mia helped carry in the cleaning supplies without being asked. She moved like someone used to being useful. In the kitchen, Rachel opened a drawer and pulled out an envelope of bills, smoothing each one like she could smooth the numbers too. Rent, utilities, gas, groceries. The math did not leave room for tournaments. Mia watched, then quietly reached into her backpack and pulled out a small zippered pouch. She unzipped it and poured a careful pile of coins onto the table, quarters and dimes and pennies she had been saving for months, the sound soft and hopeful. Rachel stared at the coins, then looked away fast, blinking like her eyes had suddenly stung. "Mia," she began, voice thin, "tryouts are one thing, but traveling is expensive." Mia nodded like she had already done the math too. "I know," she said. "I will earn it." Rachel's shoulders rose and fell. "How?" she asked, and the question was not doubt. It was worry wearing the shape of logic. Mia did not answer right away. Instead, she walked to her bedroom closet and pulled down a shoebox taped shut. The tape was old, yellowed at the edges, like it had been sealed during a different life. She sat on the carpet, opened it slowly, and lifted the lid. Like she was opening a secret. Inside were memories that smelled like cotton and paper and time. A folded uniform that no longer fit, a handful of patches, a metal ribbon carefully wrapped, and at the bottom, an old black belt tied into a neat loop. Rachel's breath caught, and she knelt beside Mia as if the floor had suddenly turned fragile. "We put that away," Rachel whispered, more to herself than to Mia. Mia traced the belt with her fingertips, not worshipping it, just remembering. "You put it away," she said gently. "I never stopped being who I am." Over the next few days, Mia trained in the only time she could afford, after school, after homework, after her mother's shift began. Some nights Rachel brought her back to the dojo to clean, and while Rachel wiped mirrors and emptied trash, Mia practiced alone on the edge of the mat, moving with quiet control, counting her breaths, adjusting her stance by inches, letting the mirror correct her without cruelty. Outside those mirrors, the black belts trained loudly, posting videos, laughing in groups, certain the tryout sheet belonged to them. But Mia trained like a person protecting a flame from wind. On Thursday evening, Tyler lingered near the trophy case while everyone packed up. His knee had improved, but his pride had not. He watched Mia tug her sleeve down after practice, and for a split second that frayed patch flashed again. Tyler lifted his phone, not boldly, but quickly, and snapped a photo as if he was catching proof. His screen glowed in the dim light, the patch enlarged and frozen, and Tyler's thumb hovered over the send button like he was about to wake up a name that had been sleeping. Tyler did not send the photo right away, and that hesitation told the truth about him more than any belt ever could, because even he could feel it. Whatever that patch meant, it did not belong to a girl who was supposed to be easy to laugh at. He stood near the trophy case after class, pretending to stretch, while the last students filtered out into the parking lot, their voices fading into the night like a door closing. The dojo grew quieter until the loudest thing was the soft whir of the ceiling fan and the distant clink of Rachel's keys as she gathered cleaning supplies. Tyler stared at his phone screen, zooming in on the frayed stitching, the faded lettering, the the tiny emblem that looked familiar in a way his pride did not want to admit. He typed a few words into a search bar, thumbs moving fast, eyes darting like he expected Sensei Nakamura to appear behind him, and read his thoughts. The screen filled with images that looked like memories. Old tournament flyers, archived brackets, grainy photos of kids in uniforms holding trophies too big for their arms. Tyler scrolled, jaw tightening, because the patch was not just a patch. It was a credential. It was a receipt. And then he saw it, a PDF from years ago, a results sheet with names in plain black text, the kind of document nobody thinks about until the day it changes your whole story. In the middle of the page, under an age division, there was a name that punched through him like cold air. Mia Carter. For a second, Tyler forgot to breathe. He read it again. Mia Carter. Next to it, a placement that meant she had not just participated, she had dominated, and it was dated back when she would have been younger, smaller, even easier to underestimate. Tyler's face heated with something sharp and confusing. Part of him wanted to call it fake. Part of him wanted to laugh it off. But a deeper part, the part that had felt that ugly sound in his knee and heard Mia's calm voice tell him not to move, knew better. He snapped another screenshot and finally hit send, not to Sensei Nakamura, but to the group chat that ran the social ecosystem of the advanced class. Brianna's name sat at the top like a crown. The message delivered. 3 dots appeared. Then Brianna replied with one word. What? Logan followed with a string of laughing emojis, but even those looked nervous now. Tyler typed, she is not just watching from the sidelines. She has been there. Brianna answered, prove it. Tyler sent the screenshot of the results sheet. The 3 dots stopped. For a moment, there was only silence on the screen, and you could almost feel the room holding its breath through the glass of Tyler's phone. Then Brianna replied, if she really was that, why is she here as a white belt? Tyler stared at that question, because it was the same question everyone would ask, and the answer was not fun. The answer was usually pain. The answer was usually money. The answer was usually a family that had to choose survival over trophies. Tyler set his phone down and looked toward the back of the dojo, where Rachel was wiping fingerprints off the front desk with lemon polish, her movements careful, practiced, invisible. Mia stood near the mat edge, adjusting her stance, counting softly under her breath like she was praying in numbers. 1 through 10. 10 through 1. Tyler felt something he did not like, uncertainty. Because if Mia really had that history, then the tryout on Saturday was not going to be a casual victory lap for the usual stars. It was going to be a reckoning. Across town, in a small apartment that smelled faintly of laundry, soap, and budget dinners, Rachel sat at the kitchen table again with the envelope of bills, but her eyes kept drifting to the shoebox Mia had opened, the old black belt tucked back inside like a secret that could not stay buried forever. Mia did homework at the counter, pencil moving steadily, but her mind was on the mat, on the mirror, on the look in Brianna's eyes. She did not know about the group chat. She did not know her name was being passed around like gossip dressed up as investigation. She only knew that the hallway toward that door was getting louder, and that on Saturday morning at 9, she would have to walk through it anyway. Saturday morning arrived with the kind of cold that made breath visible, and by 8:45 the dojo parking lot was already filling with cars that looked more expensive than the scuffed sedan Rachel drove. Mia sat in the passenger seat with her hands folded in her lap, uniform crisp, hair tied back tighter than usual, as if order on the outside could steady everything inside. Rachel had packed a brown paper bag with a peanut butter sandwich, an apple, and a refillable water bottle, the quiet language of a mother saying, I cannot buy you comfort, but I can bring you care. When they walked in, the dojo smelled like fresh mats and lemon cleaner, like effort made respectable, and the fluorescent lights painted everything bright enough to show every detail people wanted to judge. A small crowd had gathered along the edges, parents with coffee cups, students adjusting belts, phones already out as if someone had promised them drama instead of discipline. The sign-up sheet was still taped beneath the trophy case, and Mia's name sat there like a spark on dry grass. Brianna stood with a cluster of black belts near the front, her posture perfect, her smile too calm. Logan whispered something and glanced toward Mia, then laughed like he had been rehearsing. Tyler arrived a few minutes later, moving carefully but confidently, his knee wrapped in a supportive sleeve that looked more like an accessory than a necessity. His eyes found Mia immediately, not with humor now, but with a sharp curiosity that had grown teeth overnight. If you have ever walked into a room where people already decided your story, you know that feeling. The air is polite, but it presses on your skin. Sensei Nakamura stepped onto the mat at exactly 9, clipboard in hand, and the room quieted as if someone had lowered the volume on the world. He did not smile. He did not frown. He simply began. Tryouts will be conducted in 3 parts, he said. Form, control, character. He let that last word settle, as if it mattered more than the rest. We will start with kata. Then we will do partner drills. Any sparring today will be supervised and light. No one is here to prove toughness. You are here to prove mastery. Mia's chest loosened by a fraction, because mastery was something she understood in silence. One by one, students performed. Crisp movements. Loud ka-hops that echoed off mirrors. Parents nodded. Phones recorded. Brianna went early and looked flawless, every angle sharp, every pause dramatic, like a performance designed to win applause before points were ever counted. Logan followed and turned his routine into a show, smiling at the mirror as if it were an audience. Tyler's kata was strong, but there was something slightly forced in it, like he was trying to convince the room he was still untouchable. Then it was Mia's turn. A ripple moved through the watchers. A few whispers surfaced, the kind that pretend they are questions. Who is she? Is that the girl? Did you see the patch? Mia stepped onto the mat and bowed, not to the crowd, but to the space itself. She began slowly, breathing measured, movements clean. Not loud, not dramatic, just precise, like a lock clicking into place. The room did not erupt. It did not cheer. It simply went still, because stillness is what happens when people realize they might have been wrong. When she finished, Sensei Nakamura marked something on his clipboard without expression, but his eyes lingered a beat longer than before. Partner drills, he called. Students paired up quickly, black belts clustering with black belts the way power always tries to protect itself. Mia stood alone for a moment, and then Sensei Nakamura started to assign partners. Before he could, Tyler stepped forward and spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. I will go with her, he said. Brianna's head snapped toward him. Logan's grin widened. Rachel's hands tightened around the strap of her purse. Sensei Nakamura studied Tyler, then Mia. This is not about ego, he warned. Tyler lifted his chin. It is about proof, he said, eyes fixed on Mia as if daring her to flinch. Mia did not flinch. She simply bowed once, calm as a steady heartbeat, and said, 1 round is enough. Sensei Nakamura did not let Tyler's challenge become a circus, not in his dojo, not on a morning meant to measure mastery instead of ego. He stepped between them and drew an invisible line on the mat with the edge of his foot, then pointed to 2 pieces of blue tape placed about 6 feet apart. This is a control drill, he said, voice calm, eyes steady. No power, no pride. You will demonstrate distance, timing, and restraint. Your goal is a clean touch to the shoulder with open hand, then you reset. If you cannot do that without escalating, you are not ready to represent this dojo. A few parents lowered their phones as if they suddenly remembered they were in a room that was supposed to teach respect. Tyler nodded like he agreed, but his jaw was tight, his eyes fixed on Mia like he was staring at a problem he wanted to erase. Mia bowed once, not dramatic, just correct. Tyler bowed too, but his bow looked like a formality, not a feeling. Sensei Nakamura raised his hand. Begin, he said. For a moment nothing happened, only the hum of the lights and the faint squeak of someone shifting their weight near the wall. Then Tyler moved, quick and confident, trying to close the space in a single step, like he could end the story before it had time to change. Mia did not retreat in panic. She slid, small and smooth, turning her body just enough that Tyler's reach found empty air. Not because she was faster, because she was earlier. She had read the intention before it became motion, the way a good reader knows the next sentence before turning the page. Tyler adjusted and tried again, this time circling, shoulders squared, breathing louder. Mia's feet made almost no sound. Her heel placed, her toe angled, her weight balanced like a compass needle that always returned to center. She kept her hands up, open, relaxed, not fists, not threat. Control, restraint, a quiet kind of confidence that does not need to announce itself. You could see it in the mirrors, Tyler chasing, Mia choosing. Tyler lunged a 3rd time, and Mia stepped to the side with the smallest pivot, 2 inches that changed everything. She lifted one open hand and placed it lightly on his shoulder, the touch so gentle it looked like she was brushing off lint. Then she withdrew immediately and reset behind her tape mark, eyes calm, breathing steady. A clean point. A clean lesson. The dojo did not cheer. It did not laugh. It went silent in the way a room goes silent when it realizes it has been watching the wrong person. Tyler froze, staring at her, as if he did not understand how someone so small could take control without taking anything away. Sensei Nakamura did not speak. He only lowered his gaze to his clipboard and made a mark. Tyler swallowed, then forced a smile that did not reach his eyes. Lucky, he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. Sensei Nakamura raised his hand again. Reset, he said. Tyler tried to change the rhythm, to bait her, to rush, to feint, to reclaim the script. Mia did not bite. She waited, patient, reading. When Tyler overcommit, his own momentum pulled him a half step past center, and he had to plant his foot quickly to steady himself, a small stumble that did not hurt, but did embarrass. Mia did not capitalize. She did not push. She simply touched his shoulder again, light as air, and reset. Twice. Clean. Calm. Unarguable. Brianna's smile had vanished completely now, replaced by a tight stare that looked like disbelief fighting panic. Logan's mouth hung slightly open, his usual joke stuck somewhere behind his teeth. Along the wall, Rachel's hands were clasped so tightly that her knuckles turned pale, but her eyes shone with something she had not allowed herself to feel in a long time. Relief. Sensei Nakamura finally spoke, his voice low but clear enough to reach every corner. That is what restraint looks like, he said, eyes on Tyler, then on the watching black belts. Then he turned to Mia, and for the first time his expression softened, not into praise, but into recognition. His gaze flicked to the trophy case, to the wrinkled photo behind glass, and back to Mia, as if the past had just aligned with the present. Mia Carter, he said slowly, like he was testing the name against an old memory. Where did you compete before you came here? The question made the room lean forward, because it was no longer about points on a clipboard. It was about identity, and everyone could feel the story turning in its hands. Mia stood on her tape mark, breathing steady, palms open at her sides, not celebrating, not apologizing, just present. Tyler took a step back as if the air around her had changed density. His face caught between disbelief and something that looked a lot like being humbled. Brianna's eyes flicked to the trophy case, then to the wrinkled photo behind the glass, then back to Mia, as if she was trying to solve a puzzle she had mocked 5 minutes ago. Sensei Nakamura waited, patient, but the silence around his question was not empty. It was heavy with everything Mia and Rachel had carried into that building. Mia's gaze moved past the students, past the parents, and landed on her mother at the edge of the room. Rachel looked like she had been turned into stone and then asked to breathe anyway. Her hands were clasped tight. Her work shirt looked out of place among the crisp uniforms and expensive gym bags. Her eyes begged Mia to choose safety. Mia's eyes answered with something quieter. I cannot. Mia swallowed once and spoke carefully, as if each word cost money. I competed in youth tournaments, she said. A few years ago. Logan exhaled a laugh that did not come out. Brianna's lips parted, then closed again. Someone's phone buzzed and was quickly silenced. Sensei Nakamura took one step closer, his voice lower now, almost private even though everyone heard it. Where? He repeated. And under whose coaching? Mia's fingers curled and then relaxed. She did not want to make it dramatic. She did not want to give them a speech. But truth has a way of sounding dramatic when people have been living in lies about you. Coach Dana Whitmore, Mia said, and the name moved through the room like a gust of wind. A couple of parents looked at each other. Tyler's eyebrows lifted sharply, as if he recognized it from somewhere he could not admit. Sensei Nakamura's eyes widened by a fraction. Dana Whitmore, he echoed, and there was history in the way he said it, like that name lived in an older chapter of his life. Rachel's breath hitched, because she knew exactly what Mia had just done. She had opened the shoebox in public. She had taken the past out of hiding and set it on the mat under fluorescent lights. Sensei Nakamura looked toward the trophy case and walked over without rushing. He unlocked the small latch at the bottom with a key from his pocket, the metal click loud in the quiet. He reached in and pulled out the wrinkled team photo, smoothing it gently, as if he was afraid it might tear. He held it up for a moment, angled toward the lights. The photo showed a line of children in uniforms, medals around their necks, smiles bright and unguarded. The corner that had been touched so many times was the corner where one little girl stood, smaller than the rest, eyes steady even in a frozen moment. Mia's face, younger, but unmistakable. A murmur rippled through the room like water disturbed by a stone. Brianna's cheeks went pale. Logan's grin collapsed completely. Tyler stared at the photo as if it had reached out and grabbed his throat, not with force, but with reality. Rachel pressed a hand to her mouth, not because she was ashamed, but because she was overwhelmed by being seen. Sensei Nakamura looked at Mia, then at Rachel, and his voice softened in a way the room did not expect from him. "Why did you stop?" he asked. Mia's eyes flicked down for the first time, not in weakness, but in remembrance. "Because my mom needed a job," she said quietly. "Because we moved. Because some things mattered more than medals." The words landed without accusation, but the accusation was there anyway, hanging in the air for everyone who had laughed. Sensei Nakamura nodded slowly, and when he spoke again, his tone carried something firm and protective. "You did not lose your skill," he said. "You only lost your audience." Then, as if the universe had been listening for its cue, the front door opened with a clean chime, and a woman's voice called out from the entryway, bright and surprised. "Kenji? I hope I am not late." The woman at the entryway stepped in like she belonged to the building's memories, not just its present. Her hair pulled back, her jacket still dusted with February air, a whistle lanyard peeking from her bag like a signature. Coach Dana Whitmore. The name Mia had spoken like a quiet match, now standing in real life under fluorescent lights and the watching mirrors. Sensei Nakamura's posture changed first, the way a disciplined person still shows respect when an old chapter walks back into the room. "Dana," he said, and for the first time that morning his voice carried something almost warm. Coach Dana scanned the mat, eyes sharp and kind, the kind of gaze that can spot talent even when it is wrapped in humility. Her eyes found the wrinkled team photo in Sensei Nakamura's hand, then followed the line of faces and stopped. Her mouth parted in a small, stunned smile. Then she looked at the girl on the tape mark. "Mia Carter," she said softly, as if she was afraid saying it too loud would break the moment. Mia swallowed, but her shoulders stayed steady. "Yes, ma'am," she answered. Coach Dana took a step closer, and the room seemed to shrink around the two of them, because everyone suddenly understood this was not rumor anymore. "I remember you," Coach Dana said, voice clear enough to reach every parent and every student. "You were the kid who never wasted motion. You could finish a form and still look like you had more patience left in your bones than most adults." Brianna's face tightened like a string pulled too hard. Logan looked down at the mat, as if the pattern might offer him a place to hide. Tyler stared, no smirk left, only the uncomfortable heat of being wrong in public. Coach Dana's gaze moved past Mia, to Rachel near the wall, the woman in a work shirt who looked like she had been holding her breath for years. Coach Dana's expression softened. "And you must be Rachel," she said, and Rachel flinched slightly at being addressed like she mattered. "You kept her going," Coach Dana continued, "even when life got heavy." Rachel's eyes shone, but she did not let a tear fall, not yet. She simply nodded once, as if acknowledging a truth she had been too tired to claim. Coach Dana turned back to the class, her tone calm, not scolding, but honest. "Some of you wear black belts," she said. "That means you have been taught control. It does not mean you have earned the right to shrink someone else." The silence that followed was not awkward. It was necessary. Sensei Nakamura stepped forward, clipboard in hand. "Tryouts are still in progress," he said, but his voice carried finality too. "However, I have seen what I needed to see about form and restraint." He looked at Mia. "You will be on the team." A ripple moved through the parents, not loud, but real. He then looked toward Rachel. "And the cost will not be a burden you carry alone," he added, his words firm as a vow. "This dojo has a fund for students who have skill and character. We will use it." Rachel's hands trembled at her sides, as if she had forgotten what it felt like to be helped without strings attached. Mia's eyes flicked to her mother, and in that glance was a lifetime of shared nights, shared silence, shared survival. Tyler took a slow breath and stepped forward, not bravely, but honestly. "I was wrong," he said, Voice low, eyes on Mia. Brianna did not speak, but her posture changed, the smallest bend of pride beginning to loosen. Coach Dana watched them all, and then looked back at Mia, smiling softly. Champions are not always the loudest, she said. Sometimes they are the ones who keep showing up quietly, even when the world pretends not to notice. And in the mirror wall, under bright lights and the clean scent of lemon polish, Mia stood exactly where she belonged, not because anyone finally handed her dignity, but because she had never given it away. After the tryouts ended, the dojo did not feel like a stage anymore. It felt like a home that had remembered its own rules. Parents spoke in softer tones. Phones went back into pockets. Sensei Nakamura gathered the students in a straight line and made them bow, not to celebrate Mia, but to reset the room back to respect. Then he did something small that changed everything. He asked Rachel to step forward. Rachel hesitated, eyes dropping to her work shoes. But Sensei Nakamura waited, steady, until she stood beside her daughter under the bright lights. This dojo has benefited from your labor, he said, voice clear. And it is time we stop treating that as invisible. He announced that Rachel would be paid for every extra hour she stayed, and that the dojo would hire additional help so she would not carry the building alone. It was not charity. It was correction. Coach Dana Whitmore stayed after, speaking quietly with Sensei Nakamura, then with Mia, then with Rachel, mapping out the simplest plan, training that focused on form, breathing, and calm under pressure, and travel that did not break a family. The next 3 weeks moved like steady footsteps. Brianna stopped circling Mia like prey and started keeping her distance, which was its own kind of apology. Logan stopped laughing when Mia walked by. Tyler, still proud but less cruel, began asking real questions about timing and balance, the kind of questions that admit you have something to learn. On the Friday before the tournament, Sensei Nakamura opened the trophy case again and replaced the wrinkled photo in a new frame, not as a trophy, but as a reminder that the dojo's history included more than the names people liked to shout. At dawn the next morning, the team loaded into a van for the 180-mile drive, windows fogged with winter breath and excitement. Rachel sat near the front, hands folded around a paper cup of coffee she had not bought for herself in months. Mia sat by the window, watching the highway lines flow past like calm counting. When they arrived at the hotel, it was not fancy, just clean, with a lobby that smelled like fresh towels and a hint of cinnamon from a breakfast station. Rachel held the room key like it was proof that life could be kind without asking her to beg. At the tournament venue, the gym was loud with squeaking sneakers, whistles, and applause that rose and fell like waves. Mia stepped onto a marked square for her division, bowed, and began her form the way she always had, precise, controlled, quiet. Every movement looked intentional, as if she was writing her name in the air without needing ink. When she finished, there was a beat of silence, then applause that did not feel like noise, it felt like recognition. The scoreboard lit up with her number near the top, and Rachel's hand flew to her mouth, eyes shining, because for once the world was clapping for the child it had overlooked. Later, when the weekend ended and the team drove home with tired smiles and a small collection of medals, Sensei Nakamura did not talk about winning first. He talked about conduct. He talked about restraint. He talked about how a true belt is not the color around your waist, but the character you carry when you think nobody important is looking. Months later, a small plaque appeared by the front desk. The Silent Champions Fund, set up for students whose talent had been hidden behind hard circumstances. Rachel still cleaned sometimes, but now she did it as a staff member with respect, not as a shadow. And Mia, walking into the dojo after school, no longer tried to disappear in the mirrors, because she had learned something the loudest kids had to learn the hard way. Dignity does not arrive when others approve of you. It arrives the moment you decide you will not leave it behind.